I think we are live. I am here in my studio sewing, and I decided I would show you guys how I do the, I know I post a lot of little 5x7 pouches, and I thought I would show you all how I do that. Ooh, let me turn me down. There we go. This way I watch over here so I can answer questions if you guys have them. There's always questions. Okay. Right now, what I've got here is I believe this is the request of the week at Embroidery Library. It's this adorable little girl with her flag and her pretty little 4th of July flowers. And what I wanted to do was show you guys how I put these together. My embroidery machine is a Brother PR1000E. It's a 10 needle, so I kind of just set it up and walk away, which is real nice. But that's what this embroidery hoop is from. To get my pouch centered, first what I like to do is I cut a whole bunch. I have them pre-cut, ready to go. I keep them in a shoebox in the back, in the back where I cut everything. They are already cut down to 5x7. And I have SF101 that you can get at Joann Fabrics fused onto the back already. So what I do is I hoop up a piece of Pellon interfacing. It's 911FF. It's relatively thin interfacing. I do it so that the fusible side faces up. So if I wanted to iron this when I was done, I could. I'm not going to, it doesn't need it. This is the smallest design. I did not change the size. I didn't reduce it, I didn't increase it. And how I hooped it was I always hoop and put on top of one of my cutting mats so I can see the lines underneath it. And I know that everybody's hoop has a marking that shows you the center, so it's XY axis. And if you can figure out with your own hoop, when you lay it on top of a cutting board like this, or a cutting mat, you can see where the dead center is. So after I do that, I spray it with temporary basting spray. Before I put this on, I'll spray the hoop. Yes, this hoop gets sticky. It doesn't affect the way it stitches. Some people don't like that. I don't care. If you want to get it off, goof off works really well. So anyway, after I spray that, then to keep it from shifting or even pulling, I'll spray the back of this with some of the basting spray, and then I line it up, put it on, and I go and embroider it. So this is the finished one, and to get it off, I use this. Hi Jill, hi Joyce. So you can either take it off or you can just cut, just like this. Just what doesn't matter, whatever you want to do. You can take it over with your rotary cutter, or it doesn't make a bit of difference. So if I would take it out, there we go. Now she's out. And I'll just set these to the side. And here's my rotary cutter. So if I wanted to do it this way, now I would just follow the edges up in the side and clean up this one. Okay, so now this is off and I am ready to go. Now what I've got here, this, like I said, is a 5x7. I have these pre-cut. This one's 5x7. And I'm a little retentive, so I will clean up the edges on this and the side here. And here's how I do this. I also have my lining pieces already ready. They are fused with the 911F on the back, so they're ready to go. But the trick to getting a really nice pouch that's nice, it's straight, it's even, is making sure you cut your zipper the right length and making sure that you use some tape. I know it sounds crazy, but I use tape, and I use it a lot, and I use it all the time. So here is the tape, and it's 3/16 of an inch wide. I get it at Tandy Leather. You can get it online. They have repositionable and not repositionable. This is the permanent. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna put the tape across the top and leave 3/4 of an inch on the left side, and then you're gonna put it on this one. Same thing. You're going to leave it 3/4 of an inch on this side. So now we're going to set those over here. We're going to do the same thing with this one. This is the front, so the front always has the 3/4 on the left. I'm not a fan of saying that a zipper pull can go both ways because I've never seen it open from right to left, ever. So if you get confused in which side you're doing the tape, think of it like this. So your tape's gonna go this way. Just like that. I'm gonna cut that one even a little shorter because there's a reason, and you'll see why I don't want it in that 3/4. Hi, Yvette. I'm gonna turn my radio off in the background. I don't know if you guys want to listen to Steve Miller Band. Okay, Steve Miller's off. Here we go. So, now what we're gonna do is mark, because this is gonna matter later, but we're gonna mark it now because we wanna get done with that and keep it out of the way. I'm gonna grab my tag. With these, I have fold over tags. And I suggest that if you are selling these or even giving them as gift, get some tags for yourself. They're not very expensive. I mark it 3/4 of an inch up. I'm gonna fold this in half, and I'm gonna place it so that basically right sides are together. So this is my pretty side and this is my pretty side. And I'm lining the bottom edge up with that red mark that I just made. I like that because I sew at 1/4 of an inch, everything. And now I am just going to sew, and I'm tacking it down at 1/8 of an inch. Done. This is here, so I used it. You can't see my table next to me, but it's a little bit messy. That's okay. All right, so now these pieces are all set for us to sew. But what we need to do now is get our zipper ready. What I like to do is clean off the ends here. I use YKK. I do not like Coats and Clark. I don't like them at all. They make noise when they open. These are smooth, very smooth. I don't like Coats and Clark. Huge fan YKK. Now, how I determine the top and what my zipper length is has to do with how wide this pouch is. This pouch is 7 inches wide. So I need to make sure that my zipper from not this end, but the actual zipper part to the other end is 5.5 inches long. So it needs to be 1.5 inches shorter. So now I'm gonna cut this right here, and I need to cut it at 5.5 inches. So it's there. And I can't cut on that weird angle. So I'm gonna slide it over here now. And now it's cut. So it's gonna go like this, and we're gonna put a tab on the end of this. And you're gonna like the tab, it's gonna be cute, and it's gonna be kind of sparkly. We're gonna do this one. This is a piece of cork I have left over. It needs to be 1 inch by 3/4 of an inch. So I'm gonna grab my little ruler. I have a 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch Omni Grid. I'm going to shave this down like that. You know what? I'm going to switch this one up. I'm not going to do a gold, and there's a reason. I already have a pull set up, and I don't want to screw that up for myself. So I'm going to grab this one. I have a little basket. Don't be scared of adding a zipper, Jill. You can totally do this. Watch, I will show you. It's very easy, very, very, very easy. I have an industrial machine, but you can do this on a domestic. You just need your zipper foot. Don't worry, it's not hard. So this is my little basket of scraps. I save all my scraps because I use them on all my zipper ends. So now we're gonna cut this down. It needs to be 3/4 of an inch one way, and it needs to be 1 inch the other way. And that's because a YKK zipper, any number, this is a number 3 zipper. Any number 3 zipper is, I'll spit it out, 1 inch wide. So now what I'm going to do is take my tape again, and I'm going to go across the 1 inch, not the 3/4, but the 1 inch on the back side. A couple little strips of it, and you'll see why. Some machines can't sew over this type of tape. If you have a lower end machine, you know, it costs you $200, it might not like this tape. So I suggest getting the tape that Joann Fabrics has. It's a little bit cheaper than this, maybe. I'm not even 100%, but it's not as sticky. so your machine won't hate it. All right, so now that's all I did. But when I wrap it, I always make sure that the back is a little bit longer than the front. So when I stitch the front, I'm making sure I catch the back. So now, to get pretty stitches, you always lengthen your stitch. Never keep it at 2.5 for a top stitch. 2.5 top stitch is ugly. Just gonna tell you that right now. Done. Now these are great little sellers if you do markets and craft fairs and whatnot. Fantastic. So now we're ready to assemble. I've already got my tag on. I have a tendency to forget that, so I've been starting to do that first. I'm gonna peel off this tape. I'm gonna lay this down, and I'm gonna butt this up to this end and lay it. The reason I use the tape is it keeps the zipper or the bottom, the fabric, from stretching. All right. There we go. Okay, all done. Now I'm gonna take this one that has it on the right-hand side, because when I flip it, it's on the left. We are sandwiching. Sandwich, 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 sandwich. All right, and you'll see in 1 second why there's no tape over there. Now what's great about this is if you're doing a whole bunch of them, get them all prepped, and then you can just sew them all like you would for quilting, where you just sew and join. So now I have my stitch down to 3, because that's what I use when I do my sewing stitch, when I'm putting things together. And what you want to do is sew the zipper on at 1/4 of an inch. This size zipper is 1/4 of an inch. That's the ticket, and I have 1/4 of an inch mark on my plate here. Okay, so now leave the needle down. Push the zipper out of the way. And this is where you can feel this. You can do one of two things. You can either mark this from the raw edge here, from this edge this way, 3/4 of an inch. And I'm showing you on this side. You would do it on the other side, because that's the side you're gonna see. And you actually do it when you're doing the back one. You do it on the lining fabric, because that's the one that you see first. So it's right there. So that's 3/4 of an inch. I'll double check that. It is. And over here, it is right about here. Now I can feel it, whereas you'd be able to too. So if you were sewing this together, you'd want to feel with your finger through the fabric. You can feel where the zipper ends. It ends right there, which is from the cut edge to this part, 3/4 of an inch. I know, you're shocked. You knew that was going to happen. This is the stopper. You don't want to sew over that, because it metal and your metal needle don't like one another that way. So what you're going to do now is you're going to sew until you get to this red spot. You're going to want to stop either at the red or a little bit past it. So if you have to advance your needle less than a full stitch forward, just lift your foot pedal and pull it forward. Now what I usually use, and I'm searching, here they are. Every good sewist needs a pair of hemostats, and this is why. Pull this, and I'm sure you can see this. Here's the red zipper. I just pulled it to the side, and I'm gonna finish stitching. Done. And when I open this up, you're going to see how I just pulled it into the lining. So there it is. That's what we just did. We pulled that zipper into the lining. Now this is allowing us 3/4 of an inch on this side. It has 3/4 of an inch on this side, and when we sew it at 1/4 of an inch, there's going to be a little less than a 1/2 inch gap there and a little less than a 1/2 inch gap there, which is what we want. Now, you can top stitch this now, or you can wait till you have the other side on and top stitch it. I'm gonna top stitch it now. So I'm gonna change my length to almost 4, and I'm just gonna finger press this down. You want the lining to the left and this to the right, or this to the right and lining to the left. But you want these two pieces that you've just sewn, this is your seam allowance, to go this way onto your main fabric, because you're going to catch that in your top stitch. Now I'm a righty, so I normally top stitch using the right side of the right edge of my foot. Now I don't have to switch my feet, and if you're using a zipper foot, you don't either. Just use that as your guide for your seam. So my top edge, my top stitch seam is about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit better. It is not 1/4 of an inch because I am using this foot, the edge, to do that. So I'm gonna pull that off, trim, 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 trim up your little pieces, little baby pieces there. And so now your inside lining, it doesn't have that top stitch line, which I'm a fan of. Oh, thank you, Letha. I'm glad you like those choices. I felt like this was very patriotic. It went really nicely with the girls, because there'll be more than one. I'm gonna do multiple of these little pouches. Okay, so now that's done, and now we're gonna do the back side. So here's the back piece. Pull the tape and line it up on this side. This is the easiest side to see. Okay, and now I'm just gonna hold it and line it up and continue to. This is what takes the scary out of zippers. So there we go. Now I'm gonna do this one again, just like we did on the front. We're sandwiching, using this as my edge. Line it up there and use the top edge of my zipper all the way across. La la la. And now I'm gonna sew this. So now I always sew from the end of my zipper to where it opens. I don't start where it opens because I need to pull this into the seam allowance. So that's why now we're gonna, and I marked the wrong end, so that's just me. I screw up, we all screw up. It's okay. And there we go. Okay, so now I'm almost to the end. I'm gonna make sure that my needle is down. I'm gonna pull open my zipper, and I can feel where the end is. So I'm gonna take my marker, my red pen. There she is, she's hiding. So that's where it's at, so I'm gonna mark, it's right about there. And when I get there, I'm gonna leave my needle down, stop sewing, grab my hemostats, which you can get on Amazon. You can search hemostat, and I'm not gonna go completely. I just wanna get past that metal piece. Now I'm gonna use them and pull this over, and it doesn't matter if it frays. Done. Okay. So now we're gonna close that up, and we are going to top stitch this side. And again, we are making sure the lining is to the one side and that only the top fabric, the outside fabric, is to the side, but along with the seam allowance is going with it. If it feels like you're forcing it that way, it's wrong. If it feels wrong, it's wrong. And so on this time, I'm just gonna use the left edge of my foot, and you can see what I'm doing then, hopefully. And remember, you want that pretty stitch length. And if you think that you suck at top stitch, you're like, I just can't get it right, use the same color thread, then nobody can see it. Don't make it harder on yourself. So now what we're gonna do is we are gonna put this whole thing together because we did everything we're done with. Now, if you don't use a tag on the outside, fine, put one on the inside. You'd want to add it before you sew this up. You'd want to put it about 3/4 to 1 inch down, centered on the back side of it, because when people open it, what you want them to see is your name right there. The reason I like mine on the outside is because when someone's walking around with this, they'll be like, oh, where'd you get that? And there's my name. They can see it immediately. That's the goal, right? All right. So now I just line up this corner, and I'm gonna stitch across at 1/4 of an inch. I started about 1/4 of an inch in. I'm gonna try and stop at about 1/4 of an inch. 1/4 of an inch on most machines is where your foot comes up from when it goes flat to when it comes up. So on mine, that point is right there. And if I pivot this, boom, I'm exactly 1/4 of an inch. So now coming this way, I want to make sure that this and this, the two outsides, match up nicely. So I will put a pin there to do that. And before I forget, because yes, I've forgotten, I'm gonna open this all the way. Just make sure that the pull is not where you're gonna stitch, because that would be wrong. and it makes an ugly noise and things break, and then you have to put a new needle in. And I kind of backstitch at the corners because I worry. So now is where you get your little Gina-majig, which I might not have handy this time around. No, it's not handy. So I'm going to use my ruler because I have it. So I might close this just a little bit, and here's why. I want to smush that. That needs to be smushed. Now I'm going up multiple layers, so you have to raise the foot, otherwise you don't get nice stitching. So I'm raising the foot. This is even. Now over on a domestic, you can't sew over needles. You can, but you shouldn't. On a industrial, it almost never makes an issue. So remove it before you get there. Now, when you're sewing your lining, you want the lining to fit nice and snug inside of the main outer body. To do that, you need to shave off 1/8 of an inch all the way around. So if this was 1/4 of an inch, now you need to sew this at 3/8. So I'm gonna get to the bottom. I'm not gonna let this point get to that curve. I'm gonna let it go a little bit, right about there. Yep, that's 3/8. So now I'm gonna sew this corner, but I'm gonna stop, and I'm gonna mark it, but I don't mark it when I do it when I'm just sewing. I'm gonna stop about there, and I'm gonna stop about there. And you'll see why in a second. So, let's see. Here we go. And right now, because I am getting ready to, I'm gonna come up this end, I'm just gonna pin this, because that's where I'm going in a second. This entire time you can do all this, just keep your needle down. All right. So I'm at that point, I back stitch, I go forward. I'm gonna get to this one, I'm gonna back stitch and go forward. The reason I do that and I back stitch and I stopped at 3/8 of an inch, because I've been doing these so many times. This is gonna be our opening. And when we tear this open, it has already made a nice little perforation that it wants to fold on. But if you don't back stitch, then it's just gonna tear all the way to the corners. So that's the ticket to keep you from doing that. So now I gradually go back as I sew this. So now I'm once again at 1/4 of an inch. I'm gonna put this little thing right here to make sure that I go forward nicely, and I did. I'm gonna go all the way down. And we ended perfectly at that 1/4 of an inch mark. And now I'm gonna go this way and back stitch. And now I'm gonna raise this so my take-up lever is all the way at the top. And I'm gonna grab my rotary cutter and I'm gonna trim these corners. If you trim up these corners, when you turn it, it turns a little bit nicer and you get more of a corner than you would a rounded corner. So now I'm gonna grab my seam ripper. I'm gonna open this up, finger press it that way, and I'm gonna finger press it this way. And now I'm gonna tear it open. And I can see where my back stitching is. And now we're just gonna flip it. This is called birthing a bag. Imagine doing this on a bigger one. Trust me, it kind of sucks. Yeah, it's a little tougher. You're like, sit there and you fight and you fight and you fight and you fight. It's okay, but it takes a lot of work. Okay. So, now that she's like this, I'm gonna get my fingers into these corners and pop the corners. Now another good use for your hemostats is this. Since they always stay at your machine because there's nowhere for them else to go, close it up, push it into the corner. Don't push too hard or you'll tear it. And then use it to run up the side. Run across the bottom. You're just pressing that seam out, that's all. And now you're gonna do this one. And that's that. And see, now I'm looking at this and I don't like the way that looks. And since I want to sell this, I'm going to pop that back. I'm going to stitch it again. I will be the first person to tell you nothing I sew is ever perfect, and I don't mind showing you guys when I don't like something. It's a corner. I reinforce it by going back over it multiple times. But you see how quickly that was fixed? That's way easier than having someone call you and say, hey, that $22 pouch I bought from you, it just broke open. And you're like, okay, that's great. And see, it still didn't catch, so I'm gonna do it one more time. For whatever reason. And now it will. All right. There we go. And that time I did it. Yay me. Okay, so this one's finished. Oh, I'll poke that a little bit more. And then I'm going to show you how you finish these off. And these cute little suede tassels, I got them, you'll see them in a second. I got them on Amazon, and they're like $8 for 40 of them or something like that. Very inexpensive, so totally worth my whole $8. And I think if you have Prime, the shipping was free. And they came really fast, and they come in brass, and they come in gold, and they come in silver. All right. So now I'm using my hemostats to pop that corner because I want that out. So there we go. So now that's out, and this is all nice in here. So what I'm gonna do, now I've already got this bottom seam, and I'm gonna stitch it up. And yes, you can sell these 5x7 pouches for $22 on Etsy. Now Etsy doesn't matter, that doesn't look, if you're going to a market, like an outdoor market, you have to worry about your demographic. But on Etsy, you take a good photo, you can sell these for $22 easy. And $3.50 for shipping. And they're worth it because of the time you put in to make them, the amount of thread, the amount of interfacing, the zipper, the pulls. It's all absolutely worth it. Never let people tell you that what you've got is too expensive and you're outpricing yourself. Have faith, you're not. Okay. Value what you make and others will value it as well. And the ones that don't value it, you don't want to sell to them anyway, trust me. Those are the ones you don't want. Hi Faye, hi Sandy, Elliot, how are you guys? This video will be available later so you can watch it at your leisure. Okay, she's all done. Now if you want, you can take it over to the iron and iron it if you want. I'm not going to, for all intents and purposes, you know how to iron. Here's my little pull. I like the blue one, I'm gonna put it on. I have a lot of other choices, but I'm going blue. And here are my pliers and my little O-ring, but here's all the pulls you can get. There's brass, there's silver, there's gold, they're glued in. You know, I have yet to be able to pull one out, so if you do, put some more glue in, you're good. So we could do that one. It's a little darker, but it's brass. I'm not going for the brass look. I'm gonna go for silver. Or we could do, there was a red one in here. I might have used it. Oh, there's red, but it doesn't match my zipper and I'm a weirdo, so I'm gonna go with this one. All right, so now I'm gonna open this up. Now remember, that's it, our whole bag is done. That was not that difficult. I've already got another one finished on the machine, so I'll be doing that one tomorrow, and then I'm gonna do these as a giveaway. And this top fabric, it actually has a sheen to it, Hobby Lobby. It's in the home deck fabric. It's the giant bolt, it's like 54 wide or something. And there it is. There's our little pouch. She is all finished and ready for someone to love her and put money in her. Now you don't have to do the tab like I do, but I would always recommend doing your end like this. It just looks nicer. If you made this 7.5 wide, then you could use a 6-inch zipper. You wouldn't have to cut it down, and it really doesn't make much more of a difference, but you'd still get the gaps on both sides, which is kind of nice. So totally up to you, but this is how I do them and how I sell them. So I hope you guys have a great evening, and thanks for watching. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to message me.